So hi, good afternoon. My name is Jos Bruins. Thank you for inviting me, Rob. I think the invite went through you. I am talking on behalf of Neovate. Neovate is a small company with, let's say, standardization consultants who focus on the standardization space. On the one hand, for bigger companies who want to, let's say, grow their team, add in their team standardization specialists. On the other hand, also to alliances who ask for people who can help with technology marketing or leading working groups or strategy development and stuff like that. We are located at the high-tech campus in Eindhoven, and we work worldwide. We have a few projects in Europe. We have also projects in the United States and also in China. That gives us quite an interesting global perspective on what we see happening in this market. I'll give you a copy of this presentation. Although I will verbally add a lot of things, but you can, I think, via Rob later on get a copy. I would like to go quickly through the slides. I have quite some slides and some information. I guess I have something like 20 minutes, Rob. 20-30 minutes?
Yes, exactly. You have 20 minutes, and I will give you a signal at the last 5 minutes. Okay.
Okay, good. So I'll really try to quickly move through. So Neovate, normally Eddie Odijk and myself would have been in this presentation. Eddie has a good reason for not being there because he gets his COVID vaccine right now as we speak. So he has all the priorities, and therefore he is excused. I have more a technology marketing background, and he has more a architecture and technology type of background. I'm not going to go through this. This is Eddie and myself. I'm on the left side, and you can later on read this, and this is just some bio information. So what I just already kind of told you, Neovate works with companies on their supporting, let's say, their standardization strategy. On the other hand, also with alliances and also branch organizations like you yourself, with strategy development and project management, but also legal support and IP support, business intelligence, all kinds of matters which are interesting and useful or critical in standardization. We also run a training program for people who like to get more skill set in the typical tasks of standardization. And in a number of companies like Qualcomm, Intel, and some other bigger companies, that is where they have this motto: standardization is a business tool. That is an important program. They want to be sure that before they send their people to the outside world in type of in collaborative settings, that they can, let's say, drive the objectives of the company in the right way. We have been involved in a lot of standardization activities, and I think that makes us unique. I think most of you recognize some of these standards and some of these logos, and I'm sure all of you have interesting memories on what standards went well and what standards went not well and were not successful, and why this was the case, etc. In many of these projects, we were one way or another involved. Both Ed and myself have a background of Philips, and 8 years ago, we stepped out of Philips and started this company Neovate, where we work currently with something like 15 people. But let's say also in the past we were involved in many standardization activities, as Philips was one of the major players in the space of standards and standard setting, either for lighting or for consumer electronics, or in the ICT space, especially in mobile, because Philips is having a lot of intellectual property still in mobile, and of course also in the health and well-being space, and in all those areas. This standard setting was an important activity. Besides the stuff which is standing here, we are also involved in things like IP-Bliss or Project Chip, Zigbee, DALI, Thread, and I'll come back to that later on. This is what in some companies is called Section 2B. So the CTO in a bigger company works on the one hand on in-house innovation projects, on the other hand also on open innovation. And open innovation, in some cases, they split into open innovation for efficiency. So multiple companies work together because it goes faster, or it is cheaper, or they are complementary to each other and they have more knowledge. And the other part of open innovation is open innovation for standards. And that is a typical activity, which is a separated activity, because here you build a specification together with other companies, this works different than doing things in-house or in-house with your partners. So therefore, let's say they have in the bigger companies, special people involved in that. I go quickly through this. This is also might be interesting to read afterwards as well. Companies are interested in standards because they accelerate markets, because it's too expensive to go with proprietary stuff into certain markets. It's too risky to have proprietary stuff. It increases the speed or the ease of working. You save costs, and of course, with multiple companies, you can have more impact with joint specifications, and you don't want to compete between all those different players in the market. Sometimes it is also started up because they want to protect a region in the world or a country in the world, like we have typical Chinese standards, but in some cases also typical American or European standards. In general, the bigger standardization programs help you also with a more robust, let's say, compliance program, service tools, and stuff like that. What is it what we see in the global arena, and what is important, I think, also for the KNX home space or KNX commercial space? We see that the popularity of wireless is growing, and that although there are still many discussions about functionality and stuff like that, more and more people start to become convinced that wireless can do the job. And then especially the commercial domain, we see, of course, a lot of wired, but at the same time, we expect also wireless to now faster start growing. We see IP, Internet Protocol, becoming very strong. So the classical OT, operational technologies type of things, gradually move to IP type of activity. We see more and more companies not thinking in terms of products, but much more thinking in terms of systems. So connected products, even with shared functionality and stuff like that. In many companies, system thinking is way more important than classical product thinking. Energy saving, cost saving, two huge themes. So if we want to network buildings and bring more technology in there, cost pressure is also a point, and let's say possibilities to drive costs down, either in products or in installation or in aftercare and services or whatever, all relevant. Data-driven feature value, especially characteristic, of course, of a full IP system. Sensor innovation, security, safety, performance, robustness, very, very important, especially with technologies moving from the home to the commercial space, whereby we see that mission critical performance aspects are way more important than in the home space. And also, if you have very large networks, robustness and performance is very important. And besides that, AI, cloud, apps, very important topic. So besides standardization, all these ingredients are continuously, wherever in the world you are, on the agenda. And besides that, there is a big discussion on of course, on digital and on the digital transformation. We see that many people have a difficulty to understand what is digital transformation, or what is digital. And in our philosophy, digital and digitization is a combination of connectivity, datafication, new business or new business cases and business use cases, and the combination of that will lead to value chain transformation. Wow, that's a lot of difficult stuff together, but we will come back to that later on. Let's say if you understand these points, then you also understand way better, what is digitization and how will that influence our business, and when are we going to come to a point that this becomes critical. Of course, we see that many players are squeezing the most out of, let's say, the traditional technologies, and rightfully so. I would do exactly the same, but there will come a point whereby we flip over to a new world, which is the IP world. And this slide is a summary of things which you can also read afterwards. But when digital transformation hits, we always say it's the end of hardware-dominated product propositions, and also software becomes gets a very important role. It's the end of standalone products. It's the end of isolated business activities. It's also the end of traditional classic competition and competitive forces, and it's the end of very well-known and long-term value control points. Yeah? Not fully correct, but I think it expresses a little bit. In lighting, the value control point for Siemens, also on GE, was for many years making bulbs. Now the world changes to LED, and many players are making bulbs, and these companies really have to think about their business model and how they are going to create additional value, and move to let's say digital or connected lighting, and find in that whole ecosystem again their role and the spaces where they can build their basis of competition. So it's the beginning of interconnected, interoperable value propositions. It's the beginning of system thinking. It's the beginning of what we call multiplayer value models, whereby you also need to talk to your competitors or to your suppliers or to your complementers on how you are going to address the business in the future. Network interfaces in connected systems are, of course, always the reason for standardization. So there where you have connectivity, where you have interfacing, there you need to make agreements on what to standardize. Besides what we see in the different standardization activities where we are in worldwide, and where we see that IP and internet protocol based technologies become more important, we also check, of course, other things. And of course, the Gartner hype cycle is always a good checker. And also in here, you see that also important organizations like Gartner, that they are predicting that IoT platforms is not a PowerPoint story anymore, but we are on the beginning of a new life cycle here. A little bit related to the fields where you are active in. These are typical standardization projects where we are connected to, or where we look at, or which influence one standard influences the other, so which we see as influencing factors. And maybe a very brief summary of what we see in those different standards. These are basically our views, and we think it's interesting to name a few points here. First of all, Zigbee. Zigbee revolved many years ago very much around smart energy, and unfortunately that was not the success which people many years ago predicted. We see that smart energy partly transferred also into another standard within the Zigbee family, which is called Jupiter Mesh. But also Wi-Sun, for example, in Asia is a strong player, and Zigbee was not truly able to convert this and make Zigbee here a dominant standard. You see in the smart energy space a lot of Zigbee technology. I have to say that some of that technology is not, or a lot of the technology is not always certified, and might also not be fully interoperable.
Nog 5 minuutjes, Jos.
Yeah, okay. Then we see thread. Thread is a very interesting technology. We see that the industry is picking up on thread. And basically, thread can run the application standard of Zigbee on top of the thread networking layer. We see now from many, let's say, digital companies that they start to adopt thread. We see strong announcements from Google, from Nest, also from Apple as a very important shaping player in this space. And Apple did not only introduce the Apple HomePod Mini, but also the Apple TV, which was announced last week, and they are built on thread. And thread is very interesting because also in the commercial space, thread has a few interesting features related to commissioning, or related to large-scale networking and to subnetting and those kind of things. Which makes it really interesting for the commercial space. Chip, very interesting. I would certainly follow what's going on with Chip, whereby HomeKit, Google Assistant, Amazon Alexa try to make one solution so that you don't need to go anymore and check on the box works with Google Assistant or works with HomeKit. In this new standard, it will work with everything, and this is a very interesting and promising development. Then we see Zigbee in commercial, and Zigbee in commercial was a working group whereby many commercial companies try to define what is needed for the commercial space. That is gradually stopped, and this is moved over to Chip in commercial, and also with Chip they are working on addressing the commercial market and the more professional market, and make Chip suitable for that. The chair of that is Snyder, and they lead that in a very interesting way. By the way, in thread last week it was announced that Siemens gets also an important chairing role, and they are going to chair thread in Europe, and they are also going to chair the thread commercial activity. So Siemens is very much involved in that, and that's a very good thing. Bluetooth. I'm not going into the Bluetooth story. apart from the fact that we see Bluetooth very much popping up left and right, and there is a lot of discussion whether Bluetooth is suitable for large-scale networks or not. If you listen to large companies like Apple and Google, you see that they are not betting on the technology of Bluetooth and go for other solutions like, for example, Thread. Wi-Fi, interesting, neutral solution, will stay, and chip will work on Wi-Fi as well, and Wi-Fi will nicely coexist with Thread, so that's there's nothing special there. DALI, very quickly, interesting. DALI is making their application profile also suitable for Thread. They just announced that in the news. Very interesting. And at the same time, DALI is also looking at classic Zigbee to use that as a wireless interface, but especially that they are going for their application on Thread is interesting. BACnet and KNX, I'm not addressing that. They do well, they do very nicely. They are the big 100-pound gorillas in the space, in this space here. And they have interesting future innovation plans, and I think Joost will elaborate on that. And then lastly, IP-Bliss. IP-Bliss is a very interesting organization. So that's an alliance of alliances. And basically what people said is that there are something like 15 different standards. There are 20 different proprietary technologies. Why not work with the most important standards together and see how you together build an ecosystem based on IP and based on coexistence, and see, you know, that these standards ensure that, you know, for the companies who are working with these technologies, that they are future-proof by more aligning and by more collaborating. And I think that's a very interesting development. And at this moment, BACnet, or sorry, KNX is chairing that, and they have a rotating chair. So very interesting alliance, and you should certainly follow that. Cloud platforms I'm skipping. I think the consequences speak for itself as well. And I think later on, and maybe, you know, or in one of your future discussions, you know, you should maybe also look at these topics which are in here, like, you know, we are very much involved in global standardization from a global point of view and high-level point of view. You guys are much more, let's say, the national deployment organizations and very important players in the field. And personally, I think there's a lot of distance between those two. So one of the questions where we are also struggling with on our side is how can we cooperate or collaborate much more and much better with companies like you yourself to incorporate all the fields know-how which you guys have, and all, let's say, in the end, you know, the important things where all the standardization is revolving around. Okay, maybe I should stop here.
Yeah, thank you very much, Jos. I'm not sure if there are questions, because we have maybe some minutes to have to answer some questions. If somebody has a question, you can put the questions in the question box. On your right, there's an, well, at least at my side, there's on the right, there's a space where you can leave questions. I can't see any questions yet. Is there anybody who has a question, or you can also maybe put it. No, I don't see questions popping up, so maybe I can ask you a question then. You said that, for example, Google and Apple are betting on chip and on Thread, or both of them, or are they just, or are they choosing one of them, or do you think they are going to use more than one standard?
No, it's a combination. It's the combination of the technologies. So, so basically, you know, on the net, for the networking part, they are looking at Thread. For the application, and let's say a number of semantics on top of it, they are looking at chip, and the combination of that is what they will push in the future.
Okay. So, and how about the connectivity between thread and chip, and for example, KNX and BACnet? Is there connectivity possibilities for that, or do you know about it?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. I hope that that Joost maybe later on will elaborate a little bit on that. But I think that within the KNX family, they are thinking about how to move over to IP and how to bridge towards these type of technologies. And probably they see also a role for thread and KNX functionality on top of thread.
Okay, just a question coming in from Michel. He said, can you give some comments on the standard EE bus? Do you know the standard EE bus?
Yes.
Yeah.
How do I say that frankly? We don't have EE bus, let's say, in the center of our radar screen, and that might change. But so far, you know, it's more, we revolve more around the technologies which are part of IP Bliss.
Okay, because IP Bliss is still too small to make an impact, or why not?
I think they are too small. They are not, let's say, they are not pushed by the global leaders.
Okay. So another question from Henk de Maar. When will the first release of thread, is it already released, or is it still in planning, or how is the status?
Yeah, the first release is done, and they are in the introducing the thread 1.2, which is exactly the right proposition. Normally, be careful with the 1 or the 1.1 version because you get a lot of running changes. So they are now working on thread 1.2, and that's in the process of being launched in the market right now. So all your key chip suppliers are able to provide solutions there. And there are a number of companies, for example, in Europe, you see like the company Eve, that's a lighting company in or the company Coulisse, who makes shading stuff. They are already releasing products based on thread.
Okay. So do you see them products in the shops already with the thread logo or something, or chip logo? Is that something that will be seen very near future, do you think?
I'm sure that we will see that. What we see in the shop, I don't know right now, but I'm sure that, let's say, by the end of the year, you will gradually see more of these products coming. And let's say this massive support of Apple, which I think is strong, that they do it in HomePod Mini, but also in Apple TV. You know, that really gives a lot of backwind, tailwind to the launch of this technology.
Okay. Well, I think those questions were the questions that people were asking. No, I think then we might hand over the presentation to Joost, if you don't mind. Thank you very much, Joost, for your presentation and your contribution. Of course, we will make a PDF of your slides, and we will put it on the website of KNX Belgium, together with the report of the webinar. So people who want to read your slides later on, they can go to the website and download the PDF version. Well, thanks again.
Okay. In case of, you know, just let us know.
Yeah, of course. Thank you very much. So then we try to hand over the presentation to Joost Demarest. Joost, let me see if I can make you a presenter. If it's okay, Joost, you can now get the presentation.
Okay.
There he is. Joost, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Yes. Hello, everybody. Hello there in Belgium. Hope you see my presentation.
Yes, we see your presentation. Yes, perfect.
You hear me correctly? That's
yes.
also to be checked.
Yes,
okay.
I hear you correctly. So I guess everybody can hear you then. So
okay.
yeah, so, for my part, you can start your presentation, please.
Okay. Thanks a lot for inviting me as well to this afternoon session about well, actually the future. The title of my presentation is KNX, a standard for home and building automation constantly on the move. I think the people who have been with us for a long time as KNX friends, they know that we are constantly on the move and that we also try to cover new fields that become necessary and that we constantly extend our technology because that's a must, because otherwise we might just as well pack in. Thanks for listening in. I see that quite a lot of people joined, so thanks for your time and listening to what we have in store for you. What do I have in store for you? So I will first give you an overview of what do we want to achieve with KNX IoT. How far are we? KNX IoT has three different elements: the semantic project export, the third-party API, and the point API. I will describe what that is and when you can expect to see something in the shop. That's I think what interests you the most, and I will show you also the roadmap. So what have we done, what are we doing, and what will we do still? Okay, so the next slide is a slide that has a lot of text, but I will try to illustrate that with two different pictures, one abstract picture and I think a more concrete picture that should hopefully make you understand what we are trying to solve. The first thing that we try to solve to explain the text which is marked in green is the fact that more and more people out there or engineers out there, they require from an ecosystem, KNX is an ecosystem, they require that there is a common interface to installations that are based on this technology. So the time when you bought a web server interface from company X, Y, Z, and even A, B, C, D, E, F, and all of them had a different interface, a company-specific interface, these times are over. People do not accept this anymore. They want, if there's an ecosystem, and this ecosystem is there to stay, they want one common interface to talk via web services to this technology, to these installations. Secondly, what is written in the gray box is when they talk via this common manufacturer independent interface to this installation, they don't want to guess what the data they fetch there means. So if I get data there and it's thrown at me as an engineer and it just says 1, 0, then I say as engineer, sorry, mate, you have to give me data I understand. Or even better, that I as an engineer do not understand, but my machines will also understand. So please provide to this data, put additional information to this data, which says this is a light in the kitchen that switches on, or this is a temperature value in the basement of your commercial building or whatever. So this interface needs to be much more understandable. So the magic word is semantics. So the data needs to tell its meaning, and that's what the word semantics means. Then the third thing is the blue box, the dark blue box, is what people also want, and you've heard from Jos in his previous presentation, this is a general trend. So people say, if I think of things that work together, I think of internet. I think of IP. IP makes everything talk together. And I also want KNX to use IP networks to talk KNX on that. So I'm not fond of the general statement IP makes everything work together. No, IP plus a certain language talked on it makes things work together. And on top of that, you also need configuration tools to make everything work. But that's where KNX comes in. So people want thread networks or Wi-Fi networks or Ethernet networks. They say, okay, TP and radio frequency of KNX is something nice, fine. But on top of that, I also want a truly IP network, and I want to connect devices to that communicate their language on inside this IP, inside the IP protocol. And the horizontal thing that you see there, which is called pub sub interface, a difficult name, but this is all about cloud services wanting to subscribe to information. So if something happens in room X and it's about that temperature, I want to transfer that to a cloud application, and this cloud application will make use of this data and then be able to send something back to the installation. This is about this is a so-called publisher subscribe mechanism. I can subscribe to a service and I can publish something on that. And this is often heard covered by the terms edge or cloud services. So I promised you a picture that would explain these million words. So on the left-hand side of the picture, this is the familiar world to you as a KNX integrator or a KNX manufacturer. This is the classic world, so the world of twisted pair and radio frequency, and also KNX IP, KNX net IP, I must say. What do we want to extend? We want to extend this with this green box, a third-party API box. This is an interface to third parties. The word says it all. Third parties meaning people that have nothing to do with KNX. They don't want to know about the KNX protocol. They just want the data of the installations. Next to that, we also want these blue boxes, these devices, sensors and actuators that talk on these IP networks. We want, and they talk KNX on these IP networks. We want these products also to be added to the KNX portfolio. And of course, in KNX says ETS, or KNX means ETS. We want these IoT third-party API gateways to be configurable by ETS. And we want these new thread devices also to be configurable by ETS. Because if this would be a world of its own, then I think some of our KNX friends would not be too happy. I promised you another picture that would, I hope, shows this even better. So I've designed here my KNX installation with Twisted Pair. I have got some radio frequency devices in here. By the way, in ETS 6, we will even upgrade KNX radio frequency, and a lot of manufacturers believe in this technology. So this is there to stay still. We also can already link to the IP world with KNX Net IP. This has been there for 15 years, but this protocol is just the KNX telegram tunneled in a IP frame. That's what the engineers of today don't like anymore. So, and that's why there are so many different KNX web servers on the market. So instead of that, we want to link the KNX classic world with an interface that has a green part. This is the connection to the classic world, of course, but it can also have a red part. And this red part is about especially providing this third-party interface to especially the home market. Home market with its HomePods, with its Google Home, with smart things, with smartphones, with intelligent speakers, etc., etc. These things want to talk via a standardized interface to a KNX installation. And they want to have data and semantics that they understand. They want to have a security which is upmarket, so a security that is TLS based. And they want to not have to, if such an IoT gateway exists, the manufacturer of that gateway wants the ETS data to be loaded into this gateway. For especially the commercial market, where we have management stations and we have broker devices and edge devices, this commercial market is especially interested in using IP, because in a building, that's a network which is practically always there. So they want not a separate TP network, but if they build a new building, then the IP network is there. So let's use it also for building automation. So that's where the so-called KNX Point API comes in. So thread networks, Wi-Fi networks, Ethernet networks, all are a common basis for KNX communication. This is especially also for constrained devices, so devices like a temperature sensor or a push button, things which are battery driven even. Also there, the devices will already exchange semantics. For security, also security will there be different. Why? Because we are there in the IT world. We cannot say to the IT world, look, we already have a KNX secure solution. We're going to use that in your domain as well. No, the IT sector wants security that comes from the IT domain. And this will be a different security protocol than the current KNX secure. And we want to be able from the cloud on both interfaces, as I have explained, we want to subscribe, be able to subscribe to information that is in the installation or even at point level. So I want to be able to write to a specific object inside this device. That's why it's called Point API. So as you can see, dear KNX Belgium participants, we want to again build on top. So what you have now installed, you will be able in the future, and very soon with KNX IoT gateways, you will be able to access to that, and you will be able to extend your existing installations with future thread devices. So it's not about let's throw everything in the bin and start anew. No, we build on top, as you are experienced in the case of KNX. So what protocols are we looking at? I don't want to be too technical, but for the third-party API, the third-party API sits upon a protocol which is used for such purposes in the IT business, HTTP. The messages are unicast, they use TCP, and the network can be IPv4 or IPv6. And the communication medium that is used is Wi-Fi or Ethernet. The world of the point API is totally different world. It sits on CoAP. CoAP stands for Constrained Application Protocol. So to say, the smaller brother of HTTP, usable for small devices. Small devices that do not have the power and the memory to be able to use HTTP for communication. So the smaller brother or sister of HTTP is called CoAP. We will first go for a unicast. Even the group messages will be sent unicast to a broker. Later on, we want to go to unicast also in the same network, but that's for a second step. And as media, I've already mentioned thread, Wi-Fi, or Ethernet. Inside our own protocol, the KNX IoT point API sitting on top of CoAP, we have, of course, discovery mechanisms, because we need something where the device says, hello, I'm here. Towards the ETS, we need something that says, okay, I'm here, I want to be added to the network. We will have security mechanisms, as explained. We will have configuration mechanisms. We will not use the old services for that. We will modernize the services, which will talk CoAP. And inside the CoAP message will be system mode configuration messages, and there will be a read, write, and publisher subscriber interface. Where are we on this adventure? Good news is the third-party API is finalized. So the information model, the so-called description of the whole KNX installation in a format that can be understandable by machines, a so-called ontology, that's a difficult word, but this ontology or this information model is ready. The KNX IoT third-party API, so the commands which can be sent to this API are ready. In a first version, of course, because this API will be constantly updated. So it's ready in the first version. It's an approved standard in KNX. So the last time when I reported about KNX IoT, it was still very much slideware. Now it is very much specification, and manufacturers are developing KNX IoT gateways as we speak. The point API, so the IP network-based communication, or the IP field bus, I would call it, that's not yet so well advanced, but already a first version has been positively voted of the specification. That means people cannot yet start developing, but we have a lot of comments on these specifications. They need to be integrated into specs. and they need to be again approved by the members, by KNX members. And my assumption is that this will be the case in October of this year. So with this, what is this semantics and this ontology all about? So I already expressed a little bit what this is all about. The API needs to be able to answer to questions like, where is my device located and which points does it have, which points does it host, which points belong to which application function. So is this a temperature value, or is this lighting, or is this shutters or whatever? And which location is affected? Is it the kitchen, the bathroom, the first office, the second office? And also important, which feature of interest is linked to that point? Is it an analog? It's an analog sensor, okay, fine, but this thing measures a temperature. It does not measure a voltage. It doesn't measure a wind speed. So the feature of interest, the actual equipment, we also want to know what, or the API. On the API, we also want to give answers to that. So this is represented here as a, yes, I have 5 more minutes, I think,
yes,
or not?
Exactly, yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
okay, very much. I think I will manage. So this is represented here in this puzzle piece approach. So important is that this semantic information is available on this API. And how can it be there? Well, of course, if the product data contains this information, and our product data is good in ETS, but it would have to be still improved. And why do we want to improve it? Not only for this API, but also because we want to simplify a little bit the life of how to plan a KNX installation. Why do we want to do that? Because this is more and more becoming a fact in buildings, in larger size buildings. In a home, I would maybe see this differently, but in a larger size building, the building information modeling, so data about the building, is very important for the shown reasons. And the more data we have, the more we can help the people who are involved in this building process. And who is involved as KNX in this building process? The installer, the system integrator, and the building operator. And we have a very good position as KNX because we have a unified tool. No other home or building automation system has this unified tool. So we have unified data. So we can put these semantics on top of this unified data. So where are we on the work? So this is my one but last slide. We will still add features to the third-party API, that's clear. But we have also started standardizing this API in Senelec. So this will become a European standard, this third-party API. Also, the KNX ontology, the description of the installation, will become a European standard. This point API, we need the specifications, but we also need a proof of concept in ETS. So how can we link these thread networks, speaking KNX, how can we link that to the classic world? This needs to be proven that this works. For that, we are creating an ETS app, and with the help of a manufacturer, which was already mentioned this afternoon, we will make this proof of concept. And very important, this third-party API and all of this information is already publicly available. If you go to schema.knx.org, you can download as an IT guy or anybody interested in accessing this third-party API, you can already download the information. Publicly not restricted to KNX members. So what do we still want to do? We are here today. The main work concentrates on readying this proof of concept in the ETS and readying the specifications for these thread/KNX networks, and also putting the semantic data on top of the ETS product data. That is the main work that is currently being done together with the KNX members. So this is a very this is just as an important extension to KNX protocol as KNX Secure. You know that it took us some years, but I believe KNX Secure has a very good reputation in the market, and it really serves a purpose. I'm absolutely sure that this KNX IoT extension will also help KNX to further extend its success in both residential as well as in buildings. Thank you very much for your attention. If you've got any specific questions, you can contact me, of course, or my colleague, Mr. Henel, who's our KNX IoT man. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Joost. There are some questions, if I can ask you maybe some couple of minutes to ask. There's a question from Henk. He said, what is the new protocol for RF? What is it based on? He said something, there's a new protocol coming up?
Yeah, well, actually, if I said protocol, that's not entirely correct. There are a couple of extensions done for KNX radio frequency. For instance, in KNX, in ETS today, you can only configure KNX radio frequency devices that are that comply to the ready version. The ready version only has one channel. Now we are introducing the multi-channel version, so it has the multi and the ready are compatible, but the multi version has 4 channels. So it can communicate on 4 radio channels, and on top of that we have, and you will be able to configure such products in ETS 6. And on top of that, you will also products will see the light where the energy usage has been improved a lot. And this was absolutely needed for making, for instance, valves with radio frequency that are based on that use batteries. And in ETS 6, you will be able to configure such products as if they were KNX twisted pair devices.
Okay, then speaking about ETS 6, there's another question about ETS 6. Could ask, is ETS 6 already KNX IoT ready?
No, it is not KNX IoT ready. We are working, we have 2 playgrounds in KNX as we got, or we have 2 playgrounds for the manufacturers today in ETS. We have 2 apps. The first app is to test out the third-party API with their products they are developing. And the second playground is another ETS app where we will try out the configuration of these KNX thread/thread devices. So it's not yet foreseen for the first version of the ETS 6, but a further version of the ETS 6.
Okay. He's got some more questions. I will read his question. KNX Gateway will need to have an IoT stack. What about actuators like switching actuators to be controlled based on real-time events coming from the IoT world, like the smart meter? Are there any new hardware coming up with IoT stack, or is it too early for that?
Yes. So for so you will mostly see either gateways that offer this third-party API, or devices, these field bus IP devices that have indeed an IoT KNX stack. This is a new type of KNX profile that will exist next to KNX Net IP profiles. Yes, it's a new stack, yes.
Okay. Well, Kurt asked also if he can contact you in person because he has some specific questions from IoT projects that he has.
Of course.
And I think he can mail you and then you can contact him, I think. Yeah?
Of course.
Yeah. I'm not sure if there are more questions because Kurt also asked where you can find the specifics, but then of course you can go to the website and there you can find the specifics that you mentioned.
Yes, yeah. If you, of course, you get a copy of these presentations. If you go to schema.knx.org, so the English for schema, you get the specifications.
Yeah.
Free of charge.
So I cannot find any more questions in the question box. I'm not sure if there's some more people who have questions, but well, I can wait a couple of more seconds, maybe if there are questions being typed right now. I don't think so. Well, now I don't have a question as well. I mean, maybe one more question that I have is if you have heard the presentation of Jos about the thread and the chip. KNX is also connecting to that world. Well, you have shown already that thread is part of what you are doing as well. Is it something that you think will happily coexist together in the near future? Those two.
Yeah, of course. People always tell me, okay, the KNX days are over, so you better pack in and do something else because Google's going to take over and Apple's going to take over. One thing, of course, I always say to these people, what are the added values of KNX today? The added values of KNX today is ensured, guaranteed, certified interoperability. Jos said it also. Interoperability with some other of our competitors, this is not always guaranteed. But in case of KNX, it's guaranteed, certified interoperability if there is a KNX logo on it. Secondly, if you have a large scale installation and even a home which is equipped with a lot of technology, be it blinds, lighting, HVAC, you name it, security. If you integrate all of that and you don't have a tool, I would say hallelujah. Please, this will not be an easy exercise. So also in KNX IoT, we still offer this possibility. So if, of course, the Googles and the Apples, etc., also come with this offering that is guaranteed interoperability certified, and they also have a tool, then of course we will have to scratch our behind our ears and think what we do next. Yes.
Yeah. There's still one more question coming in. What is the difference, says Nico, what is the difference with devices as the Tinka KNX and the new protocol, the new KNX IoT protocol, I think he said?
Yeah. To be quite clear, we do not want to do away with any of that. So these products work. They do a perfect job of linking the KNX world today with the internet world. But what we want to do is, as I said, we want to have a manufacturer independent API. So all the if a HomeKit wants to link to KNX, it can do so in a unified way. Next to the other manufacturer specific solutions, I mean, they work. So we're not there to do away with that. Not at all.
No. So they can coexist next to the new devices that will be launched.
Absolutely. So people who have such a device in their installation, they can continue to of course, also tap via this channel into the data of the installation. No problem.
So the advantage is that people who are not member of KNX can also develop now an IoT KNX compatible device.
Yes, they don't have to match again this solution and that solution and that solution. So there's one API. So if they download this API, and there's also an electronic file to that, which eases development, they have a thing that can talk to many different gateways.
Okay. Well, I think that's for the questions. Well, I thank you very much for your contribution, Joost.
Okay.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks
I'm not sure
for having me.
Yeah, of course. We're always happy to have you. I'm not sure if Johan Vetters is still there. Can he still, does he still want to? Yes, Johan, you can talk.
I'm still here, yes. Yeah, right. It was very interesting, and I'm still one and all ears about the two presentations. So I was very fascinated to hear where it is going, and where we as let's say KNX professionals, manufacturers, and distributors, what's coming on in the next time. So yeah, it was very interesting. Thank you very much.
Okay, well, thank you. Then I probably will finish this webinar. I will thank all the people who joined us. We're all at almost 50 attendees, so that's nice. And thanks a lot to Jos and Joost. And then, well, later this next week, we will be putting a little article on the website with the downloads of the handout of the presentation. So people who wants to read something more about what was presented today can download the presentations. And then, of course, if you want to contact Joost or Jos, you can send them an email, and they will probably call you. They will send an email back, or they call you if necessary. Thanks very much, everybody, and have a nice evening.
Thank you, Rob. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Rob.
Thank you.